So here's an area that we've got to grind out. This is the forward cabin roof, and this is an add-on section. And if you look carefully, you might be able to see some screw holes just under the gel coat there. But for the moment, I'm grinding out these really quite extensive spider cracks, and there's clearly bits that are trying to pop out in this heavily crazed section. So we get the old rotary tool with a reasonably small sized bit. Let's clean that off. Try and keep these things clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the outside. I'm going to grind back, dragging it back, and then once I've done a decent length, I'll brush it out, get the dust out the way so I can see if I'm all the way through the crack. If I'm not all the way through the crack, I go again. If I am, I just carry on. So I'll just bust along this bit and see how we get on, running at sort of medium speed on the tool. So now let's have a look at that section. Let's give it a brush out. And no, that's all, apart from just where it's shallowing out at the end of the run. There's no further crack in that gel coat, so that's good. We can carry on. It's a little peripheral bit there. Good, okay, so I will carry on grinding this. So here we are, the grinding is done now. A fair bit of gel coat came out, especially in this area, which we were sort of expecting. Found a few more bits over here. So now I need to wash it down, give it a bit of acetone, and then I'll mix up some thickened gel coat and slap it on. And then the rest of the thickened gel coat I'll use on the top sides towards the aft. Okay, here we go. Cleaned it all off very thoroughly. Water scrubbing brush, and then acetone, which is now flashed off. I've gone on, I've mixed up about 150 ml of gel coat with a lot of colloidal silica. So that's a nice filler, nice and solid, which is how you want it. So this is just how I do it, you understand? I'm not saying this is how everybody should do it, but go in the direction of the scratches, shallow angle on the scraper. You are going to need to come back and do this again. Be under no illusions, but this is a start. We need a bit more on there, so we'll just splot. You're always going to have to knock this back because there's always going to be stray bits sticking up, and you're probably going to need to come back and refill some low spots, but that's for later in the process. For the moment, what we're trying to do is get the right amount of material down at the right-ish level, so you're working with the grinds as much as you can, and that way you're dragging material along the crack rather than trying to get it to bridge across the crack. If you're bridging, chances are you're going to leave a lot of air gaps under the fill, and you want to avoid that because that's always going to be weaker. Okay, so that's a rough fill. on this section. I'm going to give that, or I'm going to say, an hour to set up, and then I will come back and I will coat it in PVA so it cures properly overnight. So the gel coat has set up, but it is tacky, as it always will be, because there's no waxing styrene mixed in with it. So we get our old friend PVA and a brush, clean brush. That's clean enough. It's just to stop the air getting to the surface of the gel coat. So if it cures in the presence of air, it cures tacky, but it's not too late to get some PVA on. And it really is as simple as this. And this is nice because this is a relatively flat surface. It's a lot easier than doing the sides of the hull with it. Sploosh it on. There's a few voids in this, weirdly. We'll sort that out with the second attack. Look at that, get it all on, even the odd bits that went astray, because you're really going to want to sand the renegade bits back. You don't want those hanging around. So here we are back again, and this filling is set up, and I've just sprayed it with some water, loosen up the PVA, but I like to keep a bit of the PVA on because it foams up and acts as a bit of a lubricant for the wet sanding. So we'll give this a bit of a bash. Okay, so I've got some 240 grit on here now. Power test. So I'm just going to glide over. A little bit of water on it still, so that should do us all right. So here we go.
And I'm also going to fill in the last bit on the front of the roof that Mike was working on the other day. So here we go.
So now we're on the last phase of the actual repair of the gel coat cracks here on the forward cabin. Just got some areas that wifey filled very nicely, very level. And we're going to knock it back with some 60 grit to start with, and then work up to some much finer papers. I've got my polishing papers on hand if I want to go that far. But we'll start just by knocking it back and seeing where that gets us. Okay, so it's the last bit of the knocking back of the fill, the last lot of fill. We have got a couple of remaining problems. There's some new cracks have appeared in the new fill along here and up here. So I think we are going to actually have to remove this whole section back to this lip. But it is progress, and this is this stage of this repair complete. But we'll continue working on this piece. But I hope this has given you a good illustration of how to deal with heavily crazed areas, heavily cracked areas in gel coat. But always remember, find out how and why the cracks occurred, because you might have to address an underlying issue and not just patch and hope for the best.